I'm Ami Skimming Black, and I'm an architect with a strong commitment to sustainability in my projects. In this episode of Sust, I'm going to meet with a variety of businesses around Ireland who take different approaches to using renewable energy sources in their buildings and practices. They are responding to the climate emergency by installing solar panels of various scales, favouring eco-friendly insulation, reusing rainwater, and getting technologies in place to ease the demand on high carbon energy sources. These businesses understand that we need to continuously adapt and innovate, and there are tips for us all to take on board too. Today I'm chatting to Robbie Mcgrath in County Wicklow. He's the head of sustainability for the developer D-Res, who have just completed a housing development that offers a new way of living. So we're here at Tinakilly Park, sustainable housing development in Weklow. Can you tell me a bit about what this development is and its sustainability credentials?
Yeah, so Tinakilly Park is our kind of flagship sustainability model, and we're trying to implement as many kind of sustainable topics and targets in a first-time buyer house level instead of our kind of goal level houses. So we're kind of democratising sustainability in a way. And one of the big things we have is around our partnership with Pinergy, where we have integrated kind of solar panels and batteries into the houses to be able to provide kind of energy security for the people who live here. It gives people more security going forward and feeling like they're contributing to kind of climate change in a positive way.
Can you tell me what kind of things in terms of the technology that you're using here that's quite innovative?
Yeah, so the panels, we have essentially just 2.4 kind of kilowatts of energy generation on the roof, and we have kind of 6 panels on kind of each roof, and then we have a 7.5 kilowatt battery which will provide maybe 2 to 4 hours of battery power for the houses. So we can, with the smart energy management system we can then have the people using essentially as little grid electricity as they can. So we have heat pumps in the house providing kind of the hot water for the heating and also the general hot water use. And then we have mechanical ventilation heat recovery, which then captures any heat loss in the building and then recirculates that through the spaces. So it ends up giving us a saving for the general user of about 55% on their energy bills.
Wow.
So it's a real kind of tangible saving. It's not just greenwash, we stuck some solar panels on the roof. It's been a fully thought out process and making sure that we get the best kind of bang for the buck.
What kind of things did you consider early on in the process for a development like this?
I guess we tried to bring all of the design team in and also our partners like Pinergy. So we did early stage kind of solar assessment on the site to check what's the best orientation based on the planned layout that we had, and we tweaked some of the houses so they're slightly more south or west facing than had previously been.
You've talked about heat pumps and you've talked about solar. How does all of that work together to make a house incredibly sustainable like this?
I guess it comes down to all those pieces of the jigsaw coming together to make the house as energy efficient and kind of with the best indoor air quality that we can provide. So it's things like even looking at what type of worktops do we use? Is there kind of a lot of glues in any laminated floors that we use, setting limits on VOCs and things like that so that we have that kind of knock-on effect in the future, that we're kind of maximising the quality in that space. But then from the energy efficiency point of view, we're doing kind of energy modelling to see how do all these pieces come together and what can we tweak to get kind of lower kind of kilowatts per metre squared or things like that. And the houses are designed at the base level without the solar to be kind of A2 bare rated, and with the solar package that we put on, then it goes up to an A1. So that it's at the moment, with there only being roughly about 350 A1 houses in Ireland, but the plan is with the 360 houses here that we'll double that just from Tinikelly. So it's an idea of setting a benchmark for others to see that this can be done at first time buyer level, and it doesn't just have to be a €1 million house and things like that. It's kind of practical sustainability.
Practical and affordable and reachable for average Joe.
Yeah. I guess there's a kind of a shift in mentality from a standard Irish home, especially if it's nice and drafty and kind of has only very basic heating or no ventilation at all. So when people come in, we have to give them basically a training course on how to use the house. And we've selected equipment that has kind of limited functionality, so there's very little stuff people could actually do wrong in the house. The education of going from like that type of old style house to this is huge. Yeah, if it's kind of too hot or too cold, it's not opening windows or turning up the heat. The house will kind of manage itself in a way. So it's getting used to those kind of parameters, I think, is a key change for people.
So I'm interested in, obviously this was a greenfield site prior to you building here. What kind of steps or measures have you taken to actually sort of reduce the negative impact of perhaps something like that and versus like a brownfield, developing a brownfield site?
Yeah, so it's a big consideration we have, and it's an issue that the majority of our sites are in that kind of condition, and it was essentially just a field. So the ecological value of the site wasn't necessarily very high. The tree line was essentially on the perimeter of the site, and the majority of that has been kept. There is kind of water bodies on site that we're trying to integrate into the design, and then also using the kind of topology of the site. It's that type of idea that we want to link the different kind of ecological things on the site, so after we've finished, that we've had a positive impact and provided kind of not just kind of a small bit of greenery, but actually a thought out kind of well-designed landscape that increases the biodiversity of the space.
What type of things have you done here to reduce your what's called embodied carbon, the carbon that's in the materials made to make the building?
So we selected kind of timber frame buildings, so they enable us to make a very light frame that reduces the kind of the foundation and the concrete we need to put in the building. And the only place we have concrete is in the foundation. Obviously that has such a high embodied carbon that we want to limit that as much as possible. Concrete is such an impactful material, and we're definitely trying to look at new ways of reducing how we use it in the buildings, and then also the kind of makeup of it, so we can minimise as much as possible the embodied carbon.
I've heard that there's some kind of community generation that's going to happen in 2024. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
When we started discussions with Pinergy a couple of years ago, was to not just look at the idea of slapping some solar panels on the roof because it looks good. It was the idea that we needed to make a tangible impact on people's way to use the homes. So one part of that was a more kind of joined up thinking approach where, we're putting individual houses that have solar, so they're generating their own, but then if they have kind of excess energy that they're not using, say they're in work and the battery is full, and then that then just goes back into the grid and they get no benefit. So then the idea is to use kind of a community microgrid, which is then kind of managed through the Pinergy's cloud system. So the Pinergy cloud system enables us to set individual prices. So as a homeowner, you can say, I want to sell to John down the road for 10 cents a kilowatt instead of him buying it for 20 or 24 cents a kilowatt. And the idea is, like the way we're explaining to people, is it's the same as 20 years ago when you go to your neighbour and you'd ask for a cup of sugar. Now you're asking them for a kilowatt of energy to put on your kettle. The regulation is still lagging slightly with where we need to be, but we're definitely trying to future-proof the home so that when it's legally allowed to start trading and they've sorted out taxation and things like that, that we can, we already have the systems in place. So we have kind of first mover advantage in a way, that it just adds more value to these kind of homes and for the people who live in the homes.
I've seen that there's going to be some electrical car chargers on the houses. Tell me what the plan is for that in the future.
Yeah, so all the homes have been pre-wired for the kind of solar and the EV chargers. And the idea is that people can get kind of EV chargers on the house, and then with the kind of Pinergy app, which works really well, they can then see kind of across the country where other kind of EV chargers are. But I guess we have regulatory issues where at the moment you can't get a grant to have an EV charger unless you have an EV car. It's where we are at the moment, and hopefully that will change.
So someone could have a battery and a charger without actually, say they don't need a car, but other people can be using their charger.
Yeah, and then you're just creating that infrastructure around the country which enables people, especially in a semi kind of rural area like this, where people have that kind of range anxiety with EV cars and they worry about, can I do more than 200 kilometres? And they go, well, I can just drop in to this house on the way up and this type of thing. So that's the kind of joined up thinking we need, but we don't have the policy isn't keeping up in a way. We've aligned with the Royal Institute of Architects Ireland's kind of climate challenge goals for, they have a cap for 2030 of kind of 650 kilograms of CO2 per metre squared. And these houses at the moment are at kind of 450. So we're already way below the 2030 level, but we want to get better as well. I guess it forces market change in a way.
Yeah,
so,
I suppose you're ahead of the market in that sense, because what you're doing isn't required from a regulation point of view.
No.
But actually, what you're saying is it can be done, so it should be part of the system and regulation.
Yeah, we want to be kind of leaders in this, and it's the thing that we're not recreating the wheel. This is happening already in other countries that are further ahead than Ireland. So we're kind of borrowing the learnings that they had, and in a way we're not making our own mistakes. We're learning from other people's mistakes. So it's kind of good that we can kind of piggyback on that, and then also provide a level of leadership in Ireland that we can kind of bring everyone with us on the journey.
I've really enjoyed these past few weeks of meeting lots of different people, from Mahon Point Shopping Centre in Cork to the guys Kevin and Trey at Pure Camping in Clare, and now coming here and seeing the incredibly sustainable development that's happening just outside of Weklow. I've really enjoyed this journey, and I hope you have too, and I feel really excited about the potential innovations that people will come up with to deal with the climate crisis here in Ireland.